One of these days, I will get the timing down where I can actually show myself off the top with the music in the open. John, hear you there. It's another go round of SDH AM. Tuesday thoughts. We're going a bunch of different directions today, but when something comes across your desk at 9 o'clock, you kind of have to treat it as the broken news that it is, considering it is now a whole 6 minutes old. Breaking news from Fayetteville. Interesting stuff that came out this morning from our friends at U.S. Soccer. Emory Healthcare, named the founding partner and official healthcare provider of the Arthur M. Blank U.S. Soccer National Training Center. Founding partner, you get research, innovation, sports medicine to the new home of soccer in America. This was named this morning, and so Emory's going to serve as the official sports science and innovation research partner for the National Training Center, and that comes out this morning. Emory is going to, according to the release, support industry-leading research that advances the collective understanding of soccer-related health and performance while reinforcing a shared commitment to innovation. And it was a 5-paragraph release with quotes from David Wright, the Chief Commercial Officer at U.S. Soccer, June Lee, MD, EVP for Woodruff Health Sciences at Emory University and CEO of Emory Healthcare. I believe Dr. Lee probably has to use both sides of the business card. But news out of Fayetteville. Emory Healthcare named founding partner, official healthcare provider of the Arthur M. Blank U.S. Soccer National Training Center. Okay, here's what we got today. 10:30, we're going to work backward. 10:30, Daniel Fuller, curator of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, is going to talk about the People's Game, their new exhibit on the second floor. Got to see that over the weekend. Very, very cool stuff. And he is a soccer guy, so he does know the game. We're going to find out about how it took to get that, how much it took to get that exhibit to where it is, and how you can go see it. Atlanta, the AMBSC, Arthur M. Blank Sports and Entertainment, named their new president for soccer yesterday over both Atlanta United and NWSL Atlanta 2028. Mauricio Culebro had his press conference. We'll hear from him briefly. We've got stuff with cup dates to get into. USM&T was available for microphones in Irvine, California. We do have sound from that if we get to it. We've got all your cup dates from yesterday, previewing today. But first, he takes a breath. Opening kickoff, presented by our friends at Black Pitch Coffee and blackpitchcoffee.com. Starting your day with the most important stories in the game, the right way to start your morning. Black Pitch Coffee, part of the SDH community, showing up at events all over Atlanta. Try their home blend, made with beans from Brazil and Guatemala. Heavy-bodied, made with beans from Brazil and Guatemala, notes of walnut, semi-sweet chocolate, and a rich world-class finish. Opening kickoff, powered by Black Pitch Coffee and blackpitchcoffee.com. But so for opening kickoff today, I had a question. And we go to our friends at Kennesaw State University for some answers. So we see these folks day in and day out. They're wearing yellow tops, black shorts, usually black socks and cleats. Some have flags, some have whistles. They get yelled at by half of the arena most of the time. I wanted to find out what it takes to be one of these folks and what they go through on a physical, a mental, emotional, all these kinds of the physiological kinds of approaches here. What do they go through in a World Cup situation? What do they go through in a professional situation? And I mentioned professional because this guy is part of pro. We see him around a lot. We bring in Kevin Huet, and you're going to see that Kevin uses both sides of the business card. You see the bottom there? Senior lecture, exercise science at K-State up at Kennesaw State. Hooty hoot, Kevin. Thanks for dropping by.
Good morning, John. I appreciate you having me. Looking forward to it.
All right. I wanted to, when our dear friend Darius Goodman, he's like, hey, we can talk about this. I'm like, ooh, let's talk about this. So when it comes to the World Cup or any tournament or any match day, when you get to how much of these games have you had the chance to sit down and watch, to kind of sit there and look at your peers in action?
Whew, to say peers is nice, but those that I strive to be like, I've been fortunate this summer, given, being a professor. Summer schedule's pretty light. So probably, let's say 90% of games I've been able to watch up to this point.
I'm thinking the late night games like Algeria last night. That one might have been something that you sit there and go, no, I'll catch the highlights, right?
Yeah, I think I caught it. early part of it. I'm a night owl, not so much of a morning guy, so hooty hoo to the night owls.
Yes.
Absolutely.
When you look at how they are piecing things together with athletes that are running 22, 23 miles an hour, what is the biggest misconception that those of us who cover slash watch slash fan over, is there one big misconception that we have as viewers and journalists about either the process, what you're going through in 90 minutes? Is there one big thing that you want to sit there and go, this is different than it looks?
That's a really interesting one. Um, I don't know that I can think of one particular exact misconception. I think what I think of is realizing we are humans, and just like that, we are bound by our human eye. What we always talk about oftentimes, especially as a center referee, is we use a phrase "fight to get to the right position." And
Yeah.
so, just like players that are always running off the ball, thinking about where they got to be strategically, the center referee really is trying to get they need to be so that they are in the place to make the right decision. And so maybe one thing is just a reminder that, hey, we on the field don't have the luxury of seeing these camera angles. So what we are bound to is by that one shot, that one snapshot that we have to make a decision. And so maybe that could be the reminder. I'm not sure that I could think of any particular misconception on that other than remembering that we are humans trying to get to the right place. And it could be as simple as a player running right across our vision, we being shielded at the wrong time where, hey, a decision could have been missed.
How different is a mindset from being an AR to being a center ref on a game by game basis? Is it different tools in the toolbox, or are you kind of using offshoots? How different are those on a game by game basis?
Yeah, exceptionally different. I think I was talking to one of our athletes last night, one of our referees, one of the other hats that I wear. And we were talking about going from a tournament. Let's think about a youth tournament. She would be going to a referee game, then turn around doing an assistant referee game, but also the traits that we look for in the people in our crew. As again, we are humans. We have to have our own teamwork, our communication. So we think about what we want to see in those traits. And so, like as a center referee, you think about being the leader of the team, and they're often going to be the ones, right? It's their final, so they're taking charge. They have that leadership. But as an assistant referee, which is more my trade, we tend to show our leadership in other ways. But we have to be very malleable, able to adjust to the referee and what he's looking for. If they are somebody who is very strong in their opinions and they don't need much from the assistant referees, that's possible. Sometimes they might be others that maybe are new to a particular level and they might need more help from their referees. So there are a lot of different things that we have to really turn on and turn off about that. And it's no different than a player going from a defender one game or even early on in the game, and then you hit 75th, 80th minute, they're down a goal, and hey, my center would go up. That happened from time to time as well. So differing positions definitely changes mindset of what we're trying to do and accomplish without a doubt. Plus, you've got the personality side too. But yeah.
When it comes to, and this is when you and I were talking pre-flight here, you actually produced a paper that when it comes to, and technically I guess this is aerodynamics when it comes to exercise science and all this kind of stuff. You actually did a paper on how the flag as an AR can impact what you're doing, and literally it comes down to aerodynamics and making sure it doesn't act as a parachute. It was one of those parts of the game I don't think we really pay attention to when it comes to effectiveness for ARs. Is like you're dealing with stuff in your hand, and it's not a 4x400-meter relay, and you've got to continue to sit there and figure out, okay, how can I do this and still be effective? I thought that was really wild. When it came to that paper, what did you discover about simple aerodynamics and effectiveness when it comes to something like that?
It was, John, it was just such a neat idea. William Reed, one of our exercise science graduate students, had, when he was in, and I kind of urged him to pick up some refereeing. He was a player and even did some managing work, some coaching. That was definitely his passion in the game with me too. So I nudged him in the direction joining the dark side and becoming a referee. And when he went into his grad program here at KSU, we were kind of talking about that, and he came up with this idea, thinking about that. See, we have just another like offshoot, but we'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
As soccer referees, and other folks that you've allowed onto this podcast group has been probably shared a little bit of some of the other ins and outs of fitness tests and that sort of thing. But we have a somewhat rigorous fitness test at varying levels of evolution, I suppose, going to the national level, international level, that sort of thing, that we have to pass as referees. And they involve doing some like change of direction work, some sprints, some intervals. And so he presented this idea to, even just in the game, we are looking at, of course, using the flag. But when we're training, no one ever trains with a flag. You never go to a park, see a referee training with holding a referee flag. So how much does it really affect our movements? Does it slow us down? You get the players that are able to go full on like arm motions, but we don't get to do that as an assistant referee. So he wanted to look up how much does it change our sprints. So we said, all right, let's put it to the test. So that's where those fitness test parameters, those came back into play. And we said, all right, let's have somebody go through these sprints and these change of direction movements as if you were holding a flag. So we did some trials where you were holding the flag, and then some trials where you were not holding the flag. The general take home, the conclusion of it from what we saw, is that when we were doing these change of direction things, it actually had no impact on our times, the movements that we made. It almost acted as a counterbalance, if that makes sense. Having a flag down at our hand almost helped us to create a fluid push off in each direction. But what we did see is it came down to that sprint. And I think it's what you're talking about, especially like aerodynamics and the idea of not really being able to use your arms. You take a 60 meter sprint. Once you get past those first initial kind of the acceleration part, that top speed, we're not able to generate the acceleration to really get to a fast speed quickly over that period of time. And that is, I think, because we're losing that power in one arm, and we're basically going like this kind of motion to ultimately get through that speed. So didn't have a whole lot of effect, but it came down to the acceleration and the limited ability to use that one arm in that kind of weird single or unilateral movement.
So would you, I guess, with that empirical evidence, is there any way to, and this is like me just off the top of my head, is there a way to make a flag more compliant? Do you hold it more to your side? Do you make the flag different? Do you make the composition of the flag differently with different material? How do you get the flag to cooperate better? So in those sprints, you can have something go down to where you're not losing your effectiveness as an AR.
Yeah, I love that application. So these flags that we use, I mean, they're not heavy, but they're not weightless either. I think you could see anywhere around close to maybe a pound of weight, if that, maybe a little less. I can't remember exactly. There's differing, the market has a lot of different types of referee flags out there. At the higher levels, we tend to want to use heavier flags. Why that is, I don't know. We want to actually like feel our arm go up. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe we just want to act like we're big buff folks. But this is what I've always said, and as an assistant referee, if we are limited, we're so big on mechanics. My colleague Matthew Conger, he always kind of jokes with us being internationally about other parts of the country. They don't so much care about how you look; they care about where you are and did you get the decision right. But in our country, our coaches, our system, we're really big on, are you looking the right way? Do you have the right mechanics? All that stuff. So we are taught basically keeping a straight arm and running with very little movement. As a sports guy and as an exercise scientist, I'm looking at it thinking, I want you to be in the right place. I don't care how you look. If you have to run and this flag ends up going up like this, then do it, because you got to be where you got to be. So my first thought was, to heck with this whole keep your arm level at the side here. If you got to go, you got to go. And so recreate that sprint mechanism, in which case this piece from this study If it's so much about the arm not being able to use it for sprint to drive power, then eliminate that and get that movement. From the other perspective, I'm sure there's smaller even detail of the fabric of the flag. Some of them are more, as you're kind of describing, maybe more aerodynamic, maybe more difficult, get caught in the wind, things like that. So I would venture to say, while it is multifaceted in that regard, I think there are things that we could look at to make sure that we are still not having to already track down incredibly fast runners, but ourselves making sure that we are trying to do our best to be at our top speed as quickly as we can too. So the makeup of the flag, sure, but also I think our mechanics is also something for us to consider. So our take home was maybe you train with a flag and you get better at it. I don't know.
When it comes to the bell curve of miles and steps that ARs do on a game by game basis, in the middle of the bell curve, what is there such a thing as an average distance run? I know it depends on philosophy and game state, and if a team wants to park the Laredo garage in front of a net or something, but is there a mean when it comes to mileage on a 90 minutes plus for an AR?
Sure. Looking at different levels, of course, that's going to change,
Yeah.
right? As the literature is out there, from my understanding, going back, the modern game always is updated with different changes in the game. You're typically going to see the center referee somewhere between 10 to 12 kilometers. I think is a pretty average take for that. So you're looking at, what is that? Maybe 6 miles,
Yeah,
up to
6.2.
7 miles thereabouts.
Yeah, sounds good.
Mhm. So somewhere around there, and AR is typically going to be half of that. So you're looking at somewhere around 3 to 4 miles, so 5, 6 kilometers, generally speaking. I did my first sort of paper research was on movement patterns for assistant referees, and that was in North American soccer leagues there. So you could probably which one we referred to in that, but that was my first work with pro as a sports scientist with them before I came on later on as an actual official. I was working with them as a sports scientist, and we were able to look at all that data. And there were a couple of interesting things that we kind of took away from that. But one of the big ones was just roughly what is distances that are covered. And yeah, it came in right around that 5 to 6 kilometer range. So professional levels, that's roughly what you're looking at.
So then what's the best way, from what you've been able to glean from your peers and from your research, the best way to get in shape so that's an easy distance to maintain, knowing that there are going to be times where you're going to be sprinting, and they're knowing that you're going to have to manage your distance and your gait and your path with all the starts and stops and distance and shuttle runs and all this kind of stuff. Is there one good way for officials to get in as good a shape as possible, knowing that you're going to be doing all of these different things over a 90-minute period?
I love your thinking. It is so dynamic. And I get back to the idea of referees are athletes. And we're doing a lot of the same dynamic movement that we see the players doing. Players don't train by just running for, let's say, the 10 to 12 kilometers. Training to just run a continuous 10 to 12 kilometer run, that's not going to get us to where we want to be on the field. On the other side, if we're sprinting, let's say 60 meters at a time, maybe our longest sprint could be, I don't know, just running 60-meter sprints isn't going to get it done. So I think for us in the conditioning side of referees, it's very fascinating to see that we have to be well-rounded.
Mhm.
We have to show good sprint speed. We have to be fast. We have to keep up with the players, right? Keep up with play. You have that direct long ball that's coming from the back line over top. We have to be ready to go. We have to visualize that. We have to see that, anticipate it, all those things. But we have to show good speed. We have to show good explosive movement. When you start looking in this tournament particular, and something that at least pro is really, really emphasizing, I think it's okay to say that, is movement around the penalty area is a really important thing to us right now, because the penalty area, as we know, is such a hot space. It's so important of a space, right? That's where the critical decisions often are made, that we have to be able to quickly move from one point to the next, so that we can see. Another little buzz phrase is space between players, because that's where fouls happen, right? Whether it's the two hands pushed in the back, whether it's the actual clip on the ankle, we have to always put ourselves in a place as a referee to see between the players. So explosive, small, dynamic movements around the penalty area we need to have that. So we have to be thinking about things like plyometric movements, powerful movements, things like that. So we've got speed, we've got power. We do have to withstand a 90+ minute match. So the demands of the match there. So we do have to have the aerobic component to it as well. But to what you're also saying as well, there are times where we are go, 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 go. And then there are times where we are, okay, we can walk, scan, whatever. So then we're looking at anaerobic bouts. So you take the aerobic, we've got some anaerobic capacity, speed, and explosion. You're hitting a whole lot of different physiological factors here. Referees have to be really well-rounded in that regard.
And at the same time, you've got to know geometry because you've got to figure out your angles so you don't intrude, but you're still there. If as a center ref, you've got to know your angles where you're not intruding on play, but you still can monitor what's going on in front of you. Basically, I guess what in a 60-degree window, but be cognizant of the 60 to your right and the 60 to your left. And for an AR, you've got to be looking at what's going on in front of you, but understand what could be happening off to your side. Where ARs, I think, have to work in 180 degrees. I think center refs have to work basically in 360s. The 60
Mhm.
that's in front of them and know what's going off in their periphery. How different a skill set is that?
Yeah, John, it's exactly that, right? We kind of think about like two-dimensional view as an assistant referee sometimes. And I think that's hard for some people to realize is we're pretty bound as an assistant referee, put that hat back on. We're bound by our location, right? We have to be with the second to last defender or the ball, right? Whichever is closer to the goal line. So we can't just go wandering in a particular place to see something. So we're aware of each other's blind spots. Some of the best referees that I work with, they're always aware of my blind spots. And same thing on the other side, where we try to be aware of where the referee's blind spot is too, so that we know those angles. So two things that we always think about as referees are our angle and our proximity to play. And we can be as close as we want to. I still can't see through a defender. So there could be a tug at the shirt and I'm looking straight through their back. There's no way that I can see that. But on the other side, I might have my assistant referee who has that perfect angle to see that. So that whole teamwork side of things really comes into play there to know that. And just as you're saying too, one of the difficult things as an assistant referee, if I can shine some light on that,
Yeah.
when we are looking at a second to last defender and we have a close offside decision, imagine a ball from a right back who is all the way over there, and being able to see this very tight decision straight in front of me with the ball there is a very difficult thing for us because we can't gauge exactly when that ball is played if we can't see it. So we have to practice things like peripheral vision, timing, and there's something called a flash lag that we have to take into consideration where when the ball is played, if it's in our periphery, there's a period of time between when our mind actually registers, hey, this ball is played, and taking a snapshot of the second to last defender and hey, is this player in an offside position? So we are looking at those things. Offside as an assistant referee is our number one responsibility, right? Nobody else can do that but us. So when that goes, a referee is going to see, hey, I know his focus here is going to be offside, so I'm going to handle fouls right here. It might be a time where our focus isn't so much on offside. Maybe we're looking at a boundary line decision. And if we don't have those two things, then maybe we can help out with fouls, maybe potentially misconduct and things like that. So there's focus, there's different areas where we're thinking about what kind of angle do I have? Do I have a teammate who has a better angle? And the communication that goes through, it's constant.
Then on the mental side, with IFAB sitting there and coming into this tournament and saying, hey, you have all these new rules that you have to monitor. And you're going, thanks, boss. I appreciate that. How difficult is it with a rule change to navigate that, knowing how your brain has been trained up until that moment to purge the old law and then institute the new law and make sure that you don't stumble in a game situation where something like that could happen? I know it's more mental as opposed to exercise, but I guess it is a mental exercise.
Yeah, man, I wish we had time to go into the mental components and fatigue and things like that. But the
Look,
best
we got time and tape, so it's all yours, brother. We can keep going if you want.
what I can give you is the most recent side of things. So obviously, this past year we've now introduced the 8 seconds for the goalkeeper. brand spanking new. We have to have preparation. I think preparation is the first and foremost things that we have to do is be prepared of those, always studying them. And oftentimes in our pre-games, we've been putting those things in for at least our first several games. Hey, let's make sure we remember these new rules being in effect or new laws. So the 8 seconds, oftentimes in my first couple of games when we instituted it, sometimes the assistant referee would have to kind of jump in. Hey, we make sure we're counting 8, 7, 6, whatever it is, and then you start to see the 5, the 4, and so on from there. So it might be as simple as just as a team, make sure we remind each other when those things are in place. And as long as we're doing our due diligence, we're used to it by now. We know every year there's some kind of a law change that we have to adjust to. And it might take a game or two. Usually we have a preseason where we can kind of get those in. For these referees at the World Cup, though, so these set of new rules, these modifications are being taken straight into the tournament, right? They don't have those preseason games. I don't think they did any of the games heading into the World Cup where we were instituting it. To my knowledge, I could be wrong on that. So it's funny because they have to take it from the World Cup, instituting it right away. And I'm sure they had plenty of training on how they want to actually go about instituting it, where their kind of bar is, what they're looking at, examples of how they want it to be implemented. So it does take those adjustments, but we try to let everybody know, hey, we're all learning, and knowing what that looks like, I think is pretty important for the all stakeholders, the players, the coaches, the fans, ourselves.
All right, let's go added time and talk mental here. When it comes to the going mental and being mental and making sure that everyone that is attached to the game is at 100%. I mean, when it comes to the mental aspect, I mean, acuity is something that has to be kept. And I would imagine that, for someone with a golden retriever brain like me, it's going to be really difficult. If I ever wanted to be an AR or a center ref or something like that, I couldn't handle it. When it comes to the mental aspect of making sure that you're at 100%, that you're as sharp, you're not distracted, what goes into all of this that you've been discovering when it comes to all of your work?
Yeah, John, in all your games, take analysis, everything. Can you think of a time where you've seen a player do something that they shouldn't have done, and you're like, oh, they lost their head for a second there? Can you think of any times, maybe recently, where you've probably had to say that?
Yeah, that's a couple. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is we again this idea we are all human, and there are so many factors that play into our mental focus, and certainly for anybody that's distracted, think about the emotional toll that it takes with everything. When you see a referee start to get kind of wound up or lose their emotional side of things, that's one little cue that maybe they don't have quite the mental focus that they need to. We have a Matthew Conger, again, I'm going to shout him out. He's one of my colleagues that we work together with a lot of stuff on the mental focus for referees. And he spends a lot of time on our emotional gauge, our cognitive load, and understanding that the more factors that we're having to play into a decision and also leading up to a decision, we think about priming for something. If we're anticipating a play, then we're not surprised when it happens, and we know where to be when it's going to happen. Just like a player trying to read play, trying to see, I've got a ball out wide, I need to make sure that I'm looking in tight with my attacker. We are priming ourselves on that decision, but also what are the emotional things that are going to distract us from other things? Are we thinking about our last decision? But then lastly, putting the exercise science hat back on, fatigue. And fatigue is that last one that, man, it clouds things up. When fatigue sets in, doubt starts to set in. We're a bit slower to be where we need to be. So now not only are we thinking about the decision itself, but gosh, I'm not where I need to be, or I'm taking the wrong path, angle. Now we don't have the proximity. So the emotional side, the thinking about regulating our thoughts, priming ourselves, knowing where we need to be, and also as fatigue sets in, all of that, which players experience as well.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that we're trying to shed a light on and seeing how can we really make sure that we're training to make sure that we're accounting for that stuff and pushing that to the side or even eliminating it as best we can. I think that's what you see at some of the highest levels is they've found a way to really master that.
And yesterday, I think, is an example of that. Say what happened in Philly with a 2-hour and 11-minute rain delay. and then basically you're coming out. The lightning is outside the 7 mile range, but you're still in a downpour. So you're in a match with one of the world, this planet or any other planet's top stars, and Kylian Mbappe, and you've got to be at 120% mental acuity and readiness for a match like that because of that star power that's attached and what you anticipate in those moments. Then the bottom just falls out and it turns into something short of a monsoon. Then you have the delay. Then you've got to get back up and running. Then you've got to finish the match in the second half. I mean, that to me, when it comes to being an athlete and all these ebbs and flows and trying to keep it from being a labor of Sisyphus at points. I mean, it just seems like there's a lot to navigate there, and you've got to compartmentalize. Okay, I've got to tune this part out that's falling down on me all day, and figure out how to still do my job. I mean, that to me would be a prime example of how to navigate something like what you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. That was wild to see, wasn't it? But they draw
Mm-hmm.
from experience too, right? Especially at the World Cup, you have to think they've seen just about everything in every condition, no matter where they live in the world too, because they do so many international games. That's an adjustment for everybody to be able to have to switch back on. At least it's a flat 45 minutes. We know that's what we have in front of us, right? When they came back from halftime, that's a big adjustment for everybody to have to make. Players, referees, everybody. So much time to sit and think about things.
Yeah, think about things. What is your next paper, sir?
I wish I actually had an answer for that. I know what I want. I won't go out and say what we're going to go for just yet, but as a lecturer, I'm not so much on the ability to drive my own research all the way through with my own particular workload. So it takes a team, and it takes the right team, and we have the team in place.
You got your ARs there in exercise science for you.
Absolutely so. So I'm hoping that we can do some things looking at this whole idea of the fitness test and considering some things there. There's some changes that are being made that are worth exploring, but we're hoping that we can do something with that. The U.S. Soccer is a fantastic partnership with Emory. I love that they're kind of going into that space and helping out. We'd love to see some kind of research being there in the backyard that we can do to kind of put some kind of partnerships together. But right now there's nothing brewing on the stove.
All right. Well, then my last question for you is this: with nothing brewing on the stove, is there a topic that you have held off to the side that you haven't had the time to research that you would love to find a deep dive to get into? Is there a question that has been bugging the ever-loving ish out of you that you want to tackle? Is there an issue that you want to sit there and go, I want to figure out the why of X, WHY of X? What would that topic be off the top of your head? Is there a paper that's just been kind of sitting there that you want to sit there and really dive into, that there's a question that's been bugging the crap out of you that you want to get into for investigations?
John, there is, and it's the last one that we talked about. It's the cognitive load. It's the decision-making part. I'm so fascinated with how fatigue affects our decisions. I want more on that. And there's a little bit out there. You think about the number of decisions in a game and then which ones occur late in the game and all this stuff. Like there's some out there that does exist. I want to keep looking at that further too and do some work on how fatigue affects the decisions that we make.
Cool. Maybe we should both send emails to our buddy Chris Rivet over at Pro and sit there and go, dude, we need to tackle this. This is important. I can't thank you enough. And I think we beat the repair guys outside the house.
They've been good.
The Huet palatial estate. I can't thank you enough for doing this. If there's anything else down the line that you want to sit there and elbow your way in, seriously, you know how to get in touch. You know how to get into the studio, and you want to crash and sit there and go, I want to talk about this, at 5 o'clock or morning show on a Friday afternoon or something. So, hey, I want to talk about this. You know where the key is now under the mat, so you can come in anytime. Seriously, thanks for opening the door on all this kind of stuff. I know it's kind of third dimension material at points, and folks have to really kind of be dug into it. But there's a lot that goes into being an AR and a center ref that we don't know about, that really takes a lot of math and trig and a bunch of stuff that we don't think about to make sure that you guys are doing your jobs. I can't thank you enough for opening the door on this. I really appreciate it.
John, thank you so much for having me. I'll leave you with that idea of we are all stakeholders in the game, and I think we all learn from one another. And so just as I know referees, I hope we can be vulnerable enough to ask questions to players and coaches on perspectives, and I hope that it can kind of be reciprocated too. So I'll leave it that last idea that we can all learn from one another in some way, shape, or form in this game. So I'm super thankful that you brought me on too, and thanks for the time. It'll be fun.
All right, go get your coffee, be properly hydrated, and we'll catch up with you soon.
There he
goes. There he goes. There's Kevin Huet. That was cool. Like I said, it was something that when K-State was like, hey, we've got some stuff that we can get into here. And it's like topic. Ooh, I want to talk to Kevin. Because there's that three-dimensional stuff that we don't necessarily get into or understand. Like I said, we just see folks running down touch lines and things with flags. And like I said, when I stumbled across the paper that was written, I'm like, does that slow them down? Does it act like a parachute? You have to be aerodynamic when you're running. Literally, it just kind of opened from there. And can't thank our friends at K-State enough. We're going to have some K-State visitors tomorrow, and then we're going to have them again next week, and kind of just as a rolling expert and Q&A session with our friends at Kennesaw State. And thanks once again to Darius Goodman for helping us out and orchestrating all this kind of stuff. And like I said, I'm glad we beat the construction crew that was going to be banging, hanging, and clanging outside the Huet estate. So I'm glad we got that. All right, that was opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Black Pitch Coffee, blackpitchcoffee.com. Starting your day with the most important stories in the game, right way to start your morning. Black Pitch Coffee, part of the SDH community, showing up at events all over Atlanta. Try their home blend made with beans from Brazil and Guatemala, heavy body, notes of walnut and semi-sweet chocolate, and a rich world-class finish. Opening kickoff, powered by Black Pitch Coffee and blackpitchcoffee.com. All right, so there we go. It is time to talk about stuff, meaning the stuff on the field. I don't know if you know this, but there was a there was a handful of matchups yesterday, and they were fairly important in the grand scheme of things when it comes to selection and when it comes to position and how things are going to look for match day number 3, all these kinds of things. So let's get into that, what happened yesterday. And the big 3 had their day once again. It was in order: Messi, Mbappe, Haaland. You did have a bit of a crossover because of Mother Nature, the 2-hour and 11-minute rain delay that pushed things back in Philly. And those scenes were thick. It was just nasty. Gustavo, welcome. Good to see you, my friend. Fantastic that you're here. Good to see you. Don't be a stranger. It's always great to have Gustavo in here, one of our OGs. Let's go into yesterday. Started off yesterday, and it was that Messi guy. And for him, we all know what is happening. It seems that every single time he steps out onto the field in this tournament, something else happens that he adds to this massive dossier of activity that he has done in this tournament where where the world is chasing after a cup. So they're taking on Austria yesterday at kickoff. Understandably, Argentina was a -217 favorite. Prohibitive favorite. Austria to win was a +700, and your draw was a +350. So it comes down to moments. And we had moments yesterday with this gentleman. And really, there's only one way to get into those moments. And I give our friends at Telemundo the absolute credit for making darn sure, I'll use that Andres Cantor was in place to call these matches regardless where on the planet Argentina was. So the first match yesterday was at Jerry World in Dallas, otherwise now known as Dallas Stadium, for like the next month. 2 moments we're going to get into, 2 calls from Andres Cantor. Once again, courtesy of our friends at Telemundo. Here is moment number 1.
Enganchan para allá. Y a ver, Thiago. Ahí va Almada y le pasa a Medina, le pasa a Enzo. Larga la pelota de Thiago Almada para Medina. Quedó para Messi. ¡Gol! ¡Gol! El máximo goleador en la historia de la Copa del Mundo. Lionel Andrés Messi Cucitini ¡Feliz cumple, genio! A 2 días de sus 39, se regaló el récord.
La comienza Messi y la termina Messi. La pantalla de Almada lo que hace, deja pasar la pelota y después parte interna. ¿Qué importa que desaparezca 38, 40, 45 minutos? Esa capacidad para revertir, para cambiar la historia.
38th minute, 1-0. And you could tell that there at Jerry World that it was, it was building. And at the beginning of that highlight, you heard the mention of Thiago Almada. When you go back and watch this highlight, or if you remember going back to watch the game, if you were watching Argentina and Austria yesterday, as the ball is on the left-hand side of the 18, you see Thiago coming down the middle, and you'll see Thiago look over his shoulder. He looks over his shoulder just a sec to see if 10 is trailing. And he notices that he is. And we talk about peripheral vision and just making sure you know where folks are. So the pass comes toward the top of the 18, toward the top of the box. Thiago cheats. He kind of looks a little bit. He just kind of glances, sees that Messi's coming, and you see that dummy that Thiago Almada pieces together. And yes, there is a bit of a John Texter update. He's getting loud and proud again. And I've got to write that down, that we've got to find out what the latest is there. He was contesting some printed reports. And it was on, I believe it was on his 280 character app account that he was doing it. So I wrote it down so I didn't forget it. Probably won't have time to get into it today. But Thiago Almada just kind of looks over a little bit. Notices Messi's with him. The dummy that Thiago gives forces the Austrian defender to have to account for him. But of course, when you've got Messi screaming down the middle, great thoughts by Thiago Almada. Messi's your trailer. How many times have we said that in his career? Smashed it into the net to make it 1-0. And so you're wondering when Argentina is going to get that second. The answer was at 90 plus 5. It took a while. But once again, with Austria trying to defend, sticking with the play, Messi gets goal number 2. Once again, courtesy of our friends at Telemundo Deportes.
Si cruza, está el gol de Julián. Si cruza, vino para Julián y es el 2-0 y viene, tapó el arquero. Será de Paredes, será de Messi, tampoco Messi.
La sacan de la raya y ahí sí, sin portero, Lionel Messi entre las piernas. Gol 18, quinto gol en Copa del Mundo en esta edición 2026. Es líder de goleo, 3 puntos. ¿Quién más? El genio del fútbol mundial.
Second goal at 90 plus 5, 2-0 win. So that puts Messi at 5 goals in 2 games. And they've got Jordan coming up on Saturday late night. They're one of the 2 late games, as Saturday is the end of the group stage, and you have groups playing their matches simultaneously throughout the day. That includes here at Atlanta Stadium with the Congo and Uzbekistan. But Argentina late night Saturday against Jordan. Messi now with 5 goals in this World Cup. And somebody asked Scaloni, and it's like, man, I just run out of things to say. I'm paraphrasing there. But with what happened with Argentina yesterday. Argentina have lost only 3 of their last 18 in the group stage. They're 10-5-3. Or 10-3-5, however you phrase it. Unbeaten in their last 8. They've lost only 2 of their last 18. Second time in 19 participations that Argentina has opened up a World Cup campaign back-to-back clean sheets. All-time top goal scorer in World Cup history, and that was mentioned in the highlight, 18 goals. 2 ahead of Miroslav Klose. Cristiano Ronaldo is at 15. Gerd Muller, Kylian Mbappe are at 14. You anticipate that Kylian Mbappe is going to pass Messi at some point. Top appearances in World Cup history, Messi now with 28. Lothar Matthäus at 25. Klose at 24. Maldini and Cristiano Ronaldo at 23. Messi's opened the scoring in 7 of Argentina's last 9 fixtures. Messi's joined France's Just Fontaine in 1958 and Jairzinho from Brazil in 1970 is the only 3 players to score in 6 consecutive matches. 10 goals in his current 6-match scoring streak, which began at the round of 16 back in Qatar. And then Lionel Messi, World Cup goals scored when aged 35 or over. Olivier Giroud has 4. Roger Mila has 5. Lionel Messi has 12, people. 12 goals over the age of 35. The insanity that is attached to this. I don't know if we are necessarily going to fully understand what we've been watching here. But there might be a day when we understand what we've been seeing with Lionel Messi, or as he was properly addressed, not by a mom or anything that was, or parent that was mad at him, but Lionel Andres Messi from Andres Cantor. Then we go to match number 2. This was the one that was held up by the rain that we were talking about with Kevin Huet. France would beat Iraq 3-0 at the end of it all. Unbeaten in their 6 matches against AFC teams, 5 wins and a draw. Back-to-back wins for the 4th edition of the World Cup in a row. They've only lost 1 of their last 11 group stage matches, 8-2-1. 11 of their last 13. Didier Deschamps, they're under his tutelage, they've won 13 of their last 16. Second time France has scored 3 or more goals in 3 straight matches. Deschamps, 16 wins as a head coach, level with Helmut Schön for the most in tournament history. Deschamps has been at the helm for 21 matches. Schön was in charge of 25. Mbappe made his 100th senior international appearance, 60 international goals, 16th goal and 16th appearance, level with Klose, once again in the all-time charts. Mbappe now has the record for most World Cup matches with 2 or more goals, now having done so in 6. Mbappe's 14th minute goal. Earliest strike in a World Cup match, only the second time he scored in the first half. Other occasion being his very first World Cup goal in 2018 against Peru when he scored in the 34th minute. So because of that, and because of all of those things that we are discussing, I'm going to fix the font. Because we have one of those goals, courtesy of our friends at Football de Primera, FDP Sports. And here was that first goal on the board that can really only be described as Dr. Evil described it, activities in one of the Austin Powers movies. It was a frickin' laser beam.
La jugada y hay un rebote, inmediatamente lo vuelven a recuperar.
Mbappe le quiere pegar al arco, lo metió, balón adentro, golazo. ¡Gol de Francia! Kylian Mbappé en su partido número 16 en una Copa del Mundo marca su tanto número 15. El primero del partido para Francia lo marca Kylian Mbappé. Gana Francia 1-0, irá con el gol de Kylian Mbappé en fútbol de primera.
There you go. Jesus Acosta on the call for FTP. And that was the first one. He would score the second one after the rain delay. And your final, as France continues to work their way through the group stage, they get the win 3-0. So then, because of the rain delay, you kind of had to have a multi-screen experience. And as Norway was chasing after a win, trying to keep the beat in their group with France, they got Senegal at the Meadowlands. And this game was about half past crazy. It was back and forth. The Senegalese, not intimidated by anyone, any place, anytime, anywhere, and twice on Monday. They don't care. And no, you don't have a defender that you can truly go 1v1 with Erling Braut Haaland. But if they're going to score, then we're going to score. Literally, you're just going to try to take the over and figure out what was going on. Just to break it all down, just to give you an idea. So Pedersen scores in the 43rd, 1-0 at the break. Okay, cool. You kept Haaland in check. Haaland scores in the 48th to make it 2-0. Ismaila Sarr scores 5 minutes later to make it 2-1. Haaland scores 5 minutes later to make it 3-1. Sarr scores again with a scramble in front of the net at 90+3. And they had about 8 minutes after that because that was at 90+3, and you had time and subs and stuff that was added on. So 3-2 Senegal, once again, at the end of it, loses to Norway, but Norway wins at 3-2. So you end up with 2 goals for Erling Haaland, 2 goals for Kylian Mbappe, and another 2 for Lionel Messi. So the Golden Boot standings, once again, 5 for Messi, 4 each for Haaland and for Mbappe. Argentina wraps up their group stage, once again, late night Saturday. And it will be intriguing to find out what that lineup is going to look like as Argentina goes up against Jordan at 10 o'clock on Saturday night. At the same time that Austria takes on Algeria, probably is in a win and in situation for the winner of Algeria and Austria. So Argentina, once again, minus 435 going up against Jordan at a plus 1,500. Messi's got 5 goals. So we'll see what happens in that one. But then you have Haaland and Mbappe going head-to-head as one of your leadoff games on Friday, 26th. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Norway and France. France, obviously a big favorite. And that was pretty much what Erling Haaland said in the mix zone. He said, don't care about my goals, and France is probably going to win the tournament. So, big 25-second soundbite of Scandinavian honesty, or at least what he was mainly thinking. So, batting leadoff on Friday, Norway and France. The late game on Saturday is Argentina and Jordan. So Messi gets to look at the other 2 going up against each other, probably canceling each other out for late night Saturday while they bat leadoff on Friday. So what? 7, and so it's about 30 extra hours of rest for Messi in the group stage finale against Jordan. Then the late game last night, for all of you sickos, and we know you're out there and we love you for it. It was at Levi's. How do we know? Because the tarp was covered in Levi's fashion. At San Francisco Bay Area Stadium, Jordan had the lead in this one. Al-Rashdan scores in the 36th. It was 1-0 at the break, but then Algeria comes storming back. Ben Bouali in the 69th. Guiri in the 82nd. Algeria comes back. So, Les Fennecs de Lawrence. The Phoenix, the Desert Foxes of Lawrence, Kansas, get the 2-1 win. Big win for them. So we look at the standings once again from the groups that played yesterday. And we'll get into your previews here in just a little bit for what's happening today. So everything is still to play for in Group G. Egypt, Iran, Belgium, New Zealand. Group H, we're going to be hearing from that. Everything is still up and running. France and Norway, we know that they are both in. Winner of that match wins the group. Loser of that one is going to be second. Senegal and Iraq need help. One of them's got to win, and then you've got to win with distance. Senegal in goal difference right now is at -3. Iraq, having lost their 2 matches, is at a goal difference of -6. Group J, Jordan is out after the loss. So you wonder how Jordan is going to look against Argentina. 5 goals scored. They've won the group. Argentina takes on Austria, Algeria. And so Argentina takes on Jordan. Austria takes on Algeria. Late night Saturday, that's going to be the end of Group J. So Jordan is out. And so then we get into what is happening today. It is Group K and Group L. So your numbers and your juice boxes here. 1 o'clock Eastern time, Portland, Portugal and Uzbekistan. Portugal and Uzbekistan bat lead off today. This one is at 1 o'clock. And this matchup is in Houston at NRG. Roberto Martinez was asked at the MD-1s what he thought meaning his team, what Portugal's biggest weakness was heading into this match. And here was his answer once again. Roberto Martinez, head coach of Portugal, heading into the matchup with Uzbekistan in about 3 hours' time.
It sounds more an answer than a question, I must admit. No, I think in football, the perfect team doesn't exist. I can tell you that. It's a sport that is played with the feet. So the teams that they have the ball, that they got the possession, that they want to get in the final third, they can be more open in set plays, they can be more open in counterattack. The teams that they are well organized, that they play without the ball, then they got problems in other aspects. So we need to be ourselves. We respect immensely the experience of Fabio Cannavaro and what he's doing with his team. It's always difficult to play against teams that they got no real expectations in a big tournament, because for Uzbekistan to arrive here is a big celebration. We respect them immensely, and we need to be ready for what's going to be a really challenging game, knowing that every team in the world has their weak points and their strong points.
Roberto Martinez leading into the matchup against Uzbekistan. That one, once again, at 1 o'clock this afternoon at NRG on your favorite network of choice. After that one, it is England and Ghana. England is a minus 526. The Ghanaians are a plus 1,600. And your draw is a plus 625. Thomas Tuchel at the MD-1 was asked by Kave Solikol of Sky his thoughts on Jude Bellingham and how he has been progressing, and what it's like here for Jude Bellingham with the showing that he had in the previous match day, getting ready for match day number 3. So here is Thomas Tuchel at the MD-1s discussing what it's going to be like for his group today going up against Ghana at 3 o'clock.
Jude Bellingham looks very happy and he's playing very well, especially in the second half against Croatia. How much of that is down to him and how much of it is down to you?
Everything is down to him. If he shows everything what you see is down to him. It's his talent, it's his ability. It's the moment where he loves to compete. It's the stage where he loves to compete, and he fully buys into the idea that we do this as a team, and that's why he's with us, and that's what you see.
Thomas Tuchel on Jude Bellingham getting ready for their matchup once again against Ghana. This one's coming up this afternoon on your favorite channel of choice at 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock night side, 7 o'clock and 10 o'clock. Panama and Croatia. Croatia is a minus 200. Panama is a plus 600, and your draw is a plus 340. Looking at the notes in this particular matchup, I'm trying to figure out if that's stats of the day. I need my previews. I don't need my stats of the day now. So looking at the previews for Panama and Croatia, Luka Modric set to make his 200th international appearance in this match. Panama face a European team for the third time in this tournament after Belgium and England in 2018. Harry Kane, by the way, can become England's outright top scorer in World Cup history. Kane and Gary Lineker tied on 10 goals against the Ghanaian side, who found the net in 8 of their last 9. So keep an eye on the goal total in those. Late night, it is Colombia and DR Congo. Colombia seeking a 4th straight World Cup victory against African opponents. DR Congo face a South American nation in the competition for the first time since 1974. So Luka Modric, once again, as you're trying to put a bow on his career, there is a discussion that he will retire after this tournament, however deep Croatia goes. So that's your 4 matches there for today. Your juice boxes on the late night. Colombia minus 185. DR Congo is a plus 600. And your draw is a plus 300 for the matchup that is, where is the matchup? It's like I thought I had it here. Yeah, here it is. So Portugal-Uzbekistan is at NRG in Houston. England and Ghana is in Foxborough. I hope they have enough beer. 7 o'clock, Panama-Croatia is in Toronto, and in Group K, DR Congo and Colombia are in Guadalajara, 10 o'clock Eastern time on your favorite network of choice. So that is the rundown of everything that happened yesterday and could happen today. And obviously, once again, we'll keep an eye on stuff as we go here and get you ready for a very, very busy day toward the end of the group stage. Group stages, once again, go on the rest of this week. Saturday is going to be the tail end of the group stage, and we'll have everything for you as we go. Starting tomorrow is when you determine match day last. 6 matchups tomorrow, 6 matchups on Thursday, 6 matchups on Friday, 6 matchups on Saturday. Then we get into the knockout. So let the chaos begin with match day 3s starting at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. It is 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. Morocco and Haiti will be here in Atlanta at Atlanta Stadium. Haiti has been eliminated from the tournament, but they can be a big spoiler for Morocco. Haiti, by the way, right now is at a plus 1,600. Morocco a minus 556, and your draw is a plus 650. So now that we are past the top of the hour, it is time for our hydration break, brought to us by our friends at local Vine Beer, Wine, and Liquor stores. 2 locations here in the Atlanta area, Johns Creek and Cumberland on the Cobb Parkway. And we're thankful for them for opening the doors to us for a Saturday morning. This last Saturday, it was great to see everybody that was wandering into the door to take care of all of their needs early on in the morning, maybe mimosas, I don't know. But it is hydration break time. Local Vine Beer, Wine, and Liquor stores, thanks for being great partners with us here at SDH here in the 2026 calendar year. So hydrate away, people. I need like hold music or something. But that is that's the hydration break. We always like to have that close to halftime anyway. So that is that's your hydration break, everybody. And we're going to keep rolling with what is going on in and around the planet with coming up bottom of the hour, Daniel Fuller, the curator of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, for their new exhibit, The People's Game. And it's going to be a fun conversation because Daniel is a fan of the sport. And it was fun catching up with him and everyone at the center on the weekend. And now that we have secured Daniel to talk about the exhibit, we'll talk soccer, we'll talk about getting all of the stuff that he got, and it is worth your time. So recommended to go to the National Center for Civil and Human Rights downtown Atlanta to check out this exhibit and check out everything else that is there at the National Center. But the curator, Daniel Fuller, going to be joining us in about 20 minutes. So yesterday here in Atlanta, it was the opportunity for the assembled media to see the new president of soccer. And it's not just one of the teams. It is for the overseeing of both Atlanta United and for NWSL Atlanta 2028. So as president of soccer, Mauricio Culebro, just to give you some background, has been in town about a week. And Culebro is going to oversee all aspects of both clubs, reporting directly to AMBSC CEO Rich McKay. This is the hierarchical structure. So Culebro, for those that may not remember, president of 2 professional football clubs in Liga MX, chief operating officer of the FMF, the Mexican Football Federation. Most recently, he served as president of Tigres, looking over sporting and business operations across both the men's and women's programs for the last 5 years. Tigres won Liga MX, Campeón de Campeones, Campeones Cup, and 4 Liga MX Femenil titles, 3 Campeón de Campeones Femenil titles, top 5 in both leagues, doubled commercial revenue, strengthened the club's position as one of the top clubs in Mexico in both men's and women's. Before he was at Tigres, he was chief operating officer at the FMF, and he was part of the group that started the operational planning for the tournament that we're watching now. 15 years at Club America, going from intern all the way through the organization, president, ops VP, ops director, general coordinator, only president in Mexico in Liga MX to capture both men's and women's league championships with 2 different clubs. And so, as it was said at the time, Culebro's main task will be to elevate Atlanta United when it comes to the men's team and the launch of the women's team, NWSL Atlanta 2028. And there will be some key hires that it was mentioned at the press conference yesterday with Josh Blank, with Mauricio Culebro, and with Rich McKay, there will be some key hires that will be made in the coming months. So keep an eye out on that. Serving as the organization's primary liaison for the ongoing partnership with the U.S. Soccer Federation as well. So he's going to collaborate with Rich McKay, AMBSE, and the shared services teams as they get ready for NWSL 2028, soccer and business leadership and staff, training ground, modifications for matches for Mercedes-Benz. So that's what Mauricio Culebro has been signed to do. And so now, as president of soccer for AMBSE, he has a task ahead of him, and he is looking forward to that task. So president, I'm trying to write a font out here really quickly. If I could spell president of soccer, AMBSE. So yesterday, Mauricio Culebro was with the assembled media, and here is part of his conversation that he had with the media, and here is Jason's question about the women's team specifically and what Culebro is looking to do out of the blocks.
One thing that is different from when I started at Club American, we started the women's team, is like in that time the league just told us, you know what, you need to have a women's team, but we knew from there that we wanted to create something different, and we didn't want the women's team to be like a part of the whole team. We wanted to build something with its own identity, and I think that was a great experience. I think we took like a leap start going from there, and then during the time we've noticed that they are different. I mean, the way you need to build a team, it's very different. The women's from the men's, they're very specific, and I think they share obviously some core values like identity, like core values, and I think what I've learned in building one team and taking the other team to the next level is gonna be very helpful here. Obviously, what these guys did in the past with launching Atlanta United was great as well. So I think we can get some experience as well, what went well, what didn't, and we can replicate what went well. But obviously, we will need to create something very specific and as I said before, something that the fans will be proud of.
Mauricio Culebro, president of soccer for AMBSE for both Atlanta United and NWSL Atlanta 2028, all of the oversight that is going to be looking at both clubs. Not necessarily going to be at the table on the decisions having to do with personnel. I mean, he's not going to be, that's not going to be part of his day-to-day. Might be a part of those conversations and a listener in that. But it will be interesting to see Mauricio Culebro now, president of soccer across the board, involved with Atlanta United and with NWSL Atlanta 2028. So that is the latest from Mauricio Culebro yesterday with the assembled media. Now, the United States, they are working their way toward match day number 3. And yes, they've won the group, but they still think that there's some work to be done heading into the knockouts. They have a matchup against Turkey, and they are late night on Thursday. Right now, they're a minus 105. Draws a plus 309, and Turkey is a plus 260. They are still working out on a daily basis over at in Irvine, California, and in the area of Championship Soccer Stadium. But they're still working out on a daily basis, getting ready for everything. So the assembled media that is there in Irvine, camped out, got to catch up with both Alex Zendejas and Falarin Balogun. So here is part of the catch-up with Alex Zendejas, once again, courtesy of our friends at U.S. Soccer and Baritone. Alex Zendejas as they get ready for Thursday.
Yeah, I think it's even though, like you said, it has no effect. I mean, it still does because it gives us that confidence to what's coming next. we're talking it with the group. But just because we're through doesn't mean we have to let our foot off the pedal. We have to keep on going with that same confidence, same rhythm, and keep showing each other and the world what this team's made of.
Alex Zendejas getting ready for match day number 3. Along those same lines, Valerian Balogun getting ready for match day number 3. Once again, courtesy of our friends at US Soccer and Veritone.
No, he hasn't said anything to us. I think as players, it's not really role and responsibility to focus about that. We all have trust in the coach, and whatever team he plays, I'm sure they'll go out there with the objection to win.
After 180 minutes played, what's your takeaway about this World Cup experience as a player individually, as a team, and as a country?
Yeah, for me it's cool. It's my first World Cup. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the stakes. I'm enjoying the pressure. It's what brings out the best in me. So I'm very excited.
Valerian Balogun getting ready for match day 3 against Turkey, late night on Thursday, and so that is where we are with the U.S. men's national team as they get ready once again. They're into the knockouts and trying to stay in as tip-top a condition as possible. Head coach Mauricio Pochettino has alluded to there being some differences, maybe getting some guys some minutes, some guys some reps. So the lineup will be interesting. Layout will be interesting. Who gets minutes will be interesting, and how many. How many will Christian Pulisic get? Will he just get out there to get the engine warm and get it turned over? Is he just going to, does he get a start? We'll find out as we get closer to Thursday. But right now, Mauricio Pochettino has not said anything, as you heard from Valerian Balogun, about who's going to be playing and how many minutes as they get ready for the end of the group stage. So projections. We get into this occasionally. It's kind of fun to stare at. But our friends at the BBC have kind of laid out the knockouts, and they do it as a continually updated thing. So just to give you an idea, if the knockout started now, not now because it's 10:15 in the morning on the East Coast, but if it started in a little bit, if it started, say, noon or 1 o'clock this afternoon, here's how your matchups would go. You would have a mini bracket that would have Germany and France in the last 16. You would have Germany and France literally in the round of 16. They get through that, then they get South Korea, Switzerland, the Netherlands, and Morocco. So the winner of Germany and France would have it easy once they get past each other in the round of 16. The U.S. would be slated against Algeria with the late night win, and it would be a matchup on July 2nd. They would have Egypt and the Czech Republic in the other part of their mini bracket, which would mean that you would get Spain possibly in the quarterfinals on July the 10th. So that would be your USA path, and it would be Spain in the quarters. Brazil, Japan, Ivory Coast, and Norway in one mini bracket. Cabo Verde would be in. They would be taking on Mexico. England and Portugal, the subplots there are off the charts. Like I said, this is as if the knockouts were to start this afternoon. England and Portugal in the first round of the knockouts. Somebody's going to be taking it on the chin on July 1st. Argentina, Uruguay. Then they would get the winner of Australia and Iran. So Argentina would have a pretty decent run at the bottom of the bracket. Canada, Belgium, Colombia, Paraguay. So if you look at Argentina, then you would probably have, if you think that Argentina, as you filled out your brackets, would be making their way through as they're chasing after a repeat, you would probably have something along the lines of Argentina, England, Argentina, Brazil in the left-hand side of the quarters. And then you would probably have Argentina versus France in the semis on the left-hand side of your bracket. So that would be how that would look, and that'll be fun. So that's your early look at how things are if it was to start today. But once again, we still have a couple of match day 2s to get into and match day 3s for the remainder of the week, and we'll kind of keep an updated look on that just to kind of see where the predictor is when it comes to who could be in, who could be out, and what it's going to look like. So that was that was your projection as to how it looks today. So we'll keep an eye on all of that. Like I said, that's just kind of the fun part of the whole thing, but we'll keep an eye on that as we go on a daily basis here on the AM. Once again, coming up in about 10 minutes, it's going to be Daniel Fuller, the curator of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights downtown Atlanta. They've got a new exhibit, the People's Game. We're going to talk about that, how they assembled all the stuff, and maybe talk a little soccer with Daniel too, because Daniel might end up being one of our experts just down the line, coming in and crashing and giving opinions on a random basis. So we'll see, but it should be a fun conversation, something that I got the chance to see on the weekend. And if you're in the Atlanta area for the next year, then we'll let you know. Like I said, go see this. Definitely is worth your time. Going to the museum is worth your time, but obviously going to the National Center is worth your time. But once again, go see this exhibit if you're a fan of the sport, and we'll get into all of the care that went into this exhibit, which is extraordinary. And we'll get into that coming up here in about 10 minutes. All right. Gossip, rumor, innuendo, and headlines. I'm trying to sit here and check off all of the things that I have on my list because I don't want to miss anything coming up. And if I miss anything, then obviously it'll be done after Daniel toward the end of the show. But gossip, rumor, and innuendo, what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. I think that's going to be the easy part. The what to watch part, that's going to be the easy part because we know where it's going to be. We know what it is. And so let's get you into the rumors. Christian Pulisic back in training, by the way, for the United States. And so he'll be not quite full song, I would imagine, but obviously as you continue to run your way into the knockouts, that's what you're going to be keeping an eye on. So your rumors, as we know them, Real Madrid have Erling Haaland on their radar, according to Sport. I would imagine everybody has Erling Haaland on their radar. Sport reports club president Florentino Perez has outlined him as a potential signing should they part ways with Vinicius Jr., who is going to enter the final year of his contract next week. City contract runs until 2033, so any transfer would cost upwards of 200 million euro. Los Blancos also have interest in Michael Olise and could make a move for him after the World Cup. Arsenal looking at Midtjylland winger Dario Osorio, according to the Standard. Gunners reported to hold a long-standing interest in the 22-year-old prospect, compared in style to Alexis Sanchez. With his 25 caps for Chile, Osorio has also been linked with Bournemouth. Arsenal, Bournemouth. Spurs interested in Manchester United winger Marcus Rashford. The iPaper reports that Spurs are set to make the 28-year-old their next priority in the summer window, hopeful of negotiating a lower fee than the £25 million release clause in his loan deal at Barca. Rashford would reportedly prefer to remain in Europe. Red Devils have no plans to consider a second loan move for him at Camp Nou as they want to offload him permanently. Atleti lining up a move for PSG winger Lee Kang-in, according to AS. Talks reportedly moving forward with the 25-year-old. Keen on making a switch to the Wander Metropolitano. PSG would be willing to let him leave if they get an offer close to 35 million euro. South Korean international did not make a single start in Champions League last season. Tough competition, obviously, on that roster for the attack for Luis Enrique. Newcastle planning to move quickly to sign Monaco midfielder Lamine Camara, according to Football Insider. Magpies are reported to have been watching the situation after IDing him as a replacement for Sandro Tonali, who has been linked to Spurs. Any deal is not expected to be completed until, obviously, after the World Cup. Kamara starting both of Senegal's matches so far. PSG have stalled in contract talks with Bradley Barcola, according to Fabrizio Romano. Set to enter the final 2 years of his deal next month. No progress made. Liverpool and Arsenal at the front of the queue. Report adds that United are dreaming of signing Aurelien Tchouameni, the 26-year-old France international, as an ideal replacement for Casemiro, who is bound for Messi and friends and Inter Miami. Julian Alvarez told the four-letter that he wants to leave this summer. Previously reported Barca, PSG, and Arsenal are interested. Real Madrid also said their 150 million euro bid was rejected. Real Madrid looking to bring in another center back. They're kicking the tires on Arsenal's Piero Hincapié. The deal would be complicated as Arsenal only signed him from Bayer Leverkusen last summer on a loan deal with an obligation to sign permanently on July 1st. Barca interested in Manchester United striker Benjamin Sesko from Ekrem Konur. Arsenal have made Aston Villa attacking midfielder Morgan Rogers their number one priority, according to The Guardian. Barcelona have been informed that Harry Kane has no plans to leave the Allianz Arena. That is from Sport. The four-letter paper, once again, Spurs dialing up a new approach for Sandro Tonali. The three-letter paper is now into the discussions. Manchester United open to parting ways with Manuel Ugarte. Evening Standard, Chelsea are not currently planning to make a move for Spurs midfielder Lucas Bergvall. Leipzig hopeful of persuading winger Yan Diomande to stay at the club, offering him a new contract with a salary increase amid interest from PSG and Liverpool. That is from Philippe Heinz. Juve defender Gleison Bremer wants to stay beyond this summer, recently linked with Bayern Munich. That's from Gianluca Di Marzio. Di Marzio also reporting that AC Milan are looking at Sporting midfielder Morten Hjulmand and winger Francisco Trincao. We'll ask Nino about that one on Thursday. Football Insider, Hull City and Ipswich exploring a move for Birmingham City striker Jay Stansfield. Fabrizio Romano, Feyenoord, and Japanese international striker Ayase Ueda have received approaches from Premier League and Bundesliga clubs. Remember, Ueda came up big in the last match for Japan. Nigel Ashira has also added that Atleti attacking midfielder Thiago Almada is on the radar of clubs in Saudi Arabia, and Morten Frendrup at Genoa is attracting interest from Besiktas. So since Thiago Almada is on the books, let me go ahead and find our John Texter update. Let me find it because he was on the 280-character app. And quick note from the city. Free public Wi-Fi now available at Centennial Olympic Park, City Hall, and across the AUC as the World Cup is here. Wi-Fi hubs helping people connected. So free Wi-Fi, Centennial Olympic Park, City Hall, and the Atlanta University Center. So that'll work out really well over the next month. So John Texter, yesterday, a Rio de Janeiro court has ordered restoration of political rights to Texter in the Botafogo SAF. The decision contradicts previous judgments. The Court of Justice does not have the power to override a decision from a higher court, but legal logic suggesting the ruling will be reviewed and appeal is possible. Botafogo is working on the reversal. So keep an eye on Texter once again, that it is out there that John Texter is continuing to challenge on any legal way possible when it comes to trying to regain control. So the UK Commercial Court, through Leslie Anderson, King's Counsel, is moving toward a final judgment in the dispute between Iconic and John Texter. This came out this morning. And documents from the proceedings 5 days ago say a decision was filed, subsequently approved June 19. Leslie Anderson, acting as a magistrate of the British High Court, issued an order related to the case. Records show communication occurred remotely via email. And this goes back to the money that was borrowed from Iconic. Jamie Dinan, Alex Canaster, Edward Eisler was supposed to carry out the IPO, which would have involved listing Eagle on the New York Stock Exchange. However, Texter failed to fulfill the agreement, used the money to complete the purchase of Lyon in 22. In the case involving Iconic and Texter, the controversy revolves around the alleged breach of obligations related to the IPO process, a matter that has been discussed before British commercial courts. UK commercial courts are frequently chosen, according to Gazzetta Botafogo, to resolve business disputes because of the tradition of English commercial law and the predictability of their decisions. And Anderson's actions suggest the case has reached a relevant procedural stage, since the issuance of a court order after the trial may represent the consolidation of determinations it will affect. So, experts point out that litigation involving IPOs often has financial repercussions because it can involve valuation, participation rights, expectations for investors, contractual obligations, and compensation for losses. Expectation now, full disclosure of the grounds. Only after complete publication of the court documents will it be possible to determine with precision what's going on. Iconic is the favorite to win the case. Full trial could take place between July and October of this year. Final decision to be made, putting an end to the dispute. I wouldn't hold my breath on that. For Botafogo, Iconic's victory could symbolize a coalition with GDA Luma, since Texter no longer has resources from Eagle Bidco. If it's a loss, Iconic could have minority stakes in Botafogo or Lyon. Texter lost to Iconic in the first instance in the appeals court back in January. So that's kind of a John Texter update. It would probably take us another show entirely to continue updating on John Texter. So it is now bottom of the hour. And I thought about filibustering for another 30 seconds or so, but I don't know if we can do that. But it is time to go to downtown Atlanta and catch up with a dude who is a big old soccer fan. We're going to get into his soccer fandom, and we're going to talk about a really cool exhibit, the People's Game at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights downtown. And it is our man Daniel Fuller to talk soccer and stuff. What is up, Daniel?
Hey, how are you?
Better now. Great to hear your voice. It was great to see you over the weekend. What has the initial thoughts been for folks that have wandered in to see the exhibit up on the second floor?
Man, I don't know. It's cool. I think people are just happy to see, this combination of stories. I think people really like this mix of the international stories with things that hit closer to home, with soccer in the streets and the Fujis out in Clarkston, Georgia. I think that's been something that has really that people have brought up quite a bit.
When the center was piecing this together, they were trying to figure out how to do it. And they end up with you as a big old soccer fan. And you're like, no, I got this. I got this. How far back are we talking with the original idea of piecing this together up there for the exhibit?
Well, it started, the initial idea started a year ago.
Okay.
And then, we're an old school not-for-profit, right? We're like not-for-profit museum where we have this big, beautiful building. We don't always have all the money that people think. So we rely on a lot of grants. So it was this funny thing of like, I've got the idea. I know what I want to do. I don't know if I can pay for it, but we'll see what's going to happen, And all of a sudden, about 3.5 months ago, the grants came in, and all of a sudden it was like walk, run, like just take off. I was Haaland, like sprinting towards the box, and it was just like this all of a sudden this like, we got to move. Like we've got so much to do in such a small amount of time, and all the groundwork had been laid, all the emails were written, all the like connections were made, but actually getting the actual stuff and bringing it here to Atlanta, that all started about 3.5 months ago.
When did your fandom of the sport start?
Oh, I mean, it's always been the case. I'm from upstate New York. I grew up with the kids across the street. Their parents were Ukrainian. They used to get VHS tapes sent from the Ukraine. Like we used to watch Ukrainian soccer, like these wackos, these two brothers that I grew up with as like great friends. They used to on VHS tape record every World Cup match. And like after the World Cup was over, we'd like start over again. We do things to watch Premier League matches. Then I grew up with another kid that I grew up with. His father played professional soccer in Greece. And like soccer was always it was in a lot of ways for my friend group, it was the sport. American football wasn't the thing for us.
So I just have this envisioned conversations involving like Shakhtar Donetsk and PAOK, instead of what's going on with the Buffalo Bills and losing to the Giants and the Jets and stuff.
Or even in a lot of cases, not even like the Premier, everybody that we knew was like fans of Man United or Chelsea at that time. And it was just like, and we were over in the corner talking, we were of the soccer geeks. We were the soccer geeks.
You're the geekiest of the soccer geeks. And
exactly.
Look, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's the part that makes it cool, because I mean, look, I treat my assignments and all of the stories that I go, it's like, okay, I got to go to this place to cover this thing. And so that's where the scarves kind of come into play. And then out of camera range, I've got about 350 hats that are a part of the whole thing. So for me, it's the scarves themselves tell the stories. The triple towel rack from Pier 1 that works out fantastically on this door and the door behind, and the double reinforced curtain rods back here so they don't fall down. It's all about stories and the people that you come across, man. That's what soccer, it doesn't matter who you follow. It's a great unifier, I would think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. For this trip, I had the pleasure of went to 4 different countries, and I've got friends that I barely speak the same language with, but like we became fast friends because of wanting to go to a match together, or just this like unifying. It was funny for this exhibition. It was so many emails, like an unbelievable amount of emails. And here's the amazing thing is, a lot a lot of the emails that I was sending were in other languages, right? And here's the thing that I didn't realize is that Google Translate used to be terrible. And now you write your email, you plug it into Google Translate, you send it off, and then they write you back, and then you translate it into English, and then you respond. And I get to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I show up at Memorial Corinthians, the museum at Corinthians, at SC Corinthians, and I show up, and the director is like, oh, like so excited to see me, and a big hug, and we've been corresponding for 3 months, and big hug, and he's talking a mile a minute in Portuguese, and then he stops and he's like, wait, you don't speak Portuguese, do you? He's like, but those emails. And I was like, oh man, I should have let off in those emails, but I don't speak a word of what he thought I was fluent, and no, not the case.
We blame Google for fluency these days.
Yeah, man, but it's like we're like I made a friend for life, and
Exactly.
that guy, because we have soccer in common. We have this love for this. We have this common love for this niche topic connected to the team that he has devoted his life to that team, starting as a fan and now working at the museum and being the steward of these trophies, these uniforms, these stories, right? And it's like he and I are a similar kind of person. We come from a very different part of the world, but we both love the stories.
So when it comes to the exhibit on the whole, how did you formulate what it was going to look like, the different topics, and hold yourself to the stories that are posted? Because I imagine there's a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor that didn't make it in.
Yeah.
How did you get the exhibit to look the way that it did, knowing that you probably had 98,000 ideas that you wanted to put in the space?
I quite literally have 3 more exhibitions ready to go. I mean, we're not a soccer specific museum, so unfortunately those won't necessarily materialize, but they could materialize in programming, or we have a web portal for exhibitions on our website where there's an exhibition that I really want to do that came out of this research, and I really want to make something more of it. It deserves to be told over and over again, and it's part of the exhibition through the audio dome. And so in the center of the exhibition, we built this big soccer ball that's open, has an opening, and 4 people can sit in there. And on the outside walls, we have all these stories from Hong Kong, and from Germany, and from Ireland, and from the Basque Country in Spain. And those stories, in large part, are written by me, as the historian, as the curator. I worked with the folks that lent us the stuff. I worked with historians from those places, and I wrote those stories. But I wanted something in the middle of the space where people from the game and from all sides of the game could tell their own stories. So we built this giant soccer ball that you can sit inside of, and I think 4 people can sit inside, and a bunch of people outside. And it's 38 stories from 23 countries, I think it is. Wow. And it's people. There's just a speaker inside, and it's hooked up to an MP3 player. And I asked people very simply, I was like, just send me a voice memo. Just send me a voicemail. And I gave them a prompt, and I said, here's something that I would love to hear you talk about. If you want to talk about it, cool. If you don't, talk about whatever you want. Talk about whatever the game means to you. And I got stories. I mean, it ranges from like the owner of the Portland Timbers to the president of Bayern Munich, all the way to, Miles Robinson, former Atlanta United, now the U.S. national team, Carrie Davis, the first Black woman to represent England on the national team in England. And then it ranges all the way to, we got a IACT, which is an organization out of New York, and they run refugee camps in Mexico and Chad. And one thing that they found, spirits were really low. You have these kids that have made these incredible journeys all through South America and into Central America, and then up to Mexico, and then they're at the border, and everything is sort of, their whole life is transformed. And then all of a sudden, IACT hired soccer coaches and built fields and started providing jerseys. And these kids talk about in the audio dome about how a little bit of life went back to normal again. You know, it's amazing the connectivity of it all. I have this I have Alive and Kicking, which is a soccer ball company from Europe that had moved from Europe to Africa, and a lot of companies when they do that, they do it to cut wages. And this company pays the same exact amount that they paid in Europe. They pay at their factories in Africa. And I've got people from the factory, from the floor, from the line who sew these balls, and they talk about the importance of a company treating them fairly. And then on the weekends, getting to watch games from all around the world where their soccer balls that they sewed are in those matches, and just the pride of having put that out into the world. It's this amazing experience to sit in there and just listen to these voices for a little while.
For the exhibit that is out on the second floor,
yeah,
how many different clubs and people did you contact to get the jerseys and all of the materials, whether it was a still photograph or a banner? Or how many different folks are we talking here?
That was like of the folks that led things, that was, trying to do the math all of a sudden, it's like 30 something. It was between all of a sudden I'm blanking. I'm still recovering from the opening on Saturday night, but that was between 23 and 30 folks on the outside walls. Only everybody was so generous. There was only one team that I never heard back from, but everybody that I contacted was fully game to be part of this.
When you reach out and you make your initial contact,
yeah.
It's like, hey, I want to do this. What's their first response back in the back and forth? Obviously, they do end up cooperating and helping out and loaning something, but what's that initial response back when you send out that email saying, hey, we're doing this. I'd really like for X, Y, or Z to happen?
I think it's in a lot of ways, it's this funny thing, right? Where it's like a lot of people weren't expecting that email. And a lot of people, I think, if you read the captions on the walls, I'm not the best at sort of academic writing. I can do it when need be, but I kind of write how I talk. And I feel like there's a lot of, I kind of talk sometimes like a soccer fan, not necessarily like I get very enthusiastic, and I was very enthusiastic to borrow these things. I was very enthusiastic from the very start about getting to do this show, and I'd write to people and I'd say like, hey, like I have to have this. I have to, you guys have to be involved. Like, please, almost like pleading, like you got to. And everyone was like, all right, cool. Like, chill out a little bit, buddy. No, I don't know. I mean, everyone was game. And, when I went to the first trip that I took, my first stop was to Hamburg, and I went to St. Pauli, and they had I walk into the St. Pauli Museum, which is in the downstairs, essentially, of their stadium, of the Millens. And they had the New York Times article that had just come out about the center's expansion. Sitting on the table when I walked in. And I think for them, they just kept saying like how important it was for them to be seen in the same building as the King papers. We have this partnership with the city and Morehouse where we exhibit the Dr. Martin Luther King's personal archive of papers. And they were just like, we get to be in the same building. St. Pauli as a football club gets to say, what's important to us and what we believe in, and our terms of human rights here at the stadium, in directly upstairs from Dr. King's papers. I mean, that's quite a selling, that'll sell most people.
How many trips did you end up taking?
Not as many as I wish. But I'm enthusiastic in a lot of ways, and I'm not very good at sleep. So that first trip, I flew into Hamburg, went straight, dropped my bag at the hotel, which was 2 blocks from the stadium, went straight to the stadium, did a tour of the museum, went through the archive with the museum director, started picking things out immediately. Then I took a tour of the stadium while it was closed. Next day I went to a match. Wake up, I go to bed at 12 midnight. Wake up at 3:30 because I've got a cab to the airport to go to Dublin. The next morning, I meet with Bohemian, the team in Dublin. I meet with folks from their team. We talk about possibilities of what the exhibition could be and what they could lend. And then I go to a Bohemian match, and then I go to bed again. Wake up at 4 this time and catch a flight to Glasgow. And I go to the Scottish football, the national, what is it? Why am I blanking all of a sudden? The National Museum of Scottish Football. That's it. And I go see this incredible exhibition on the history of players from the Scottish Premier League that worked in the mines and sort of labor issues. It was the exhibition there was very in line with what our exhibition is here. And then I went to Sao Paulo a month later. And then there I went to 5 museums. There's in Sao Paulo alone, there's 5 soccer museums. There's the ones connected to the clubs, but then there's the big soccer museum at the former national stadium, and then took a side trip, a 55-minute drive gets you to Santos, where Pele played and lived, and there's the Pele Museum there. So I went to 6 soccer museums in 3 days in Brazil.
I do have 2 pieces specifically that I want to ask about, that I want to tell folks about, that are in this exhibit, but I'm going to push that back a second. Full disclosure, yes, proper hydration, absolutely, yes. We have a hydration break at halftime every show. My mother, full disclosure, she was a senior archivist for the state of Georgia.
Cool.
So I know about preservation and care and making sure that you handle things a certain way, that you're protected, so that the hands don't get any kind of grease or anything on anything that is of value, so it's preserved.
Mm-hmm.
How difficult was it, considering that you made a handful of trips and then you had folks sending other things to you as a part of this exhibit? How difficult was it to manage proper care of these items in transit, because your hands, and you're not there to sit there and have every piece put into your hands into a hermetically sealed envelope or a Halliburton case and closed off so it doesn't get any sunlight? How hard was it to get everything there and make sure that it was properly preserved for presentation, that it will continue to be that way as their lives go forward for these particular pieces of history?
Let's just say that there was a range. there was boxes that arrived in our archival boxes with poly, with these poly sheets in between everything individually wrapped. And then there was boxes from teams that, let's just say, have a little more punk aesthetic to them, and it was just a box with a bunch of stuff thrown in it. There was a range. There was a big range, and and it's like, once it's here, we treat everything like it's a museum artifact. For the time that it's here, we've got the white gloves, and we've got once it's here, it's in good hands. But some of the places, I don't know, nothing arrived. Well, I shouldn't say that. One thing arrived broken. And I took a photo and sent it to the organization. They didn't realize that even with it, I said, "Oh no, look at this." And they said, "What's wrong with it?" I said, "It's broken." And they were like, "Oh, is it?" I said,
Wow.
"Yeah." I think some of the things that some of the things that we covet, or that we think are so cool, sometimes for some other museums or some other places or some other soccer clubs, it's there every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
They live with these things. And this is a total side note, but for a long time ago, before I started working here, I've always worked in art museums, and years ago, I was in Bolivia in La Paz, and I went into an art museum, and it was this hot and humid day, and while I was in the museum, it started raining, and they had all these artifacts, all these beautiful artifacts, and here everything has to be, we control the humidity levels, and we have the AC in museums, and we're checking everything at all times to make sure that what we have is in proper conditions. I'm in this museum in Bolivia, and there's a window in one of the galleries, and the gallery guard has the window up, and it's raining directly into the gallery floor, into the museum floor. And I just walked up to him, and I was like, yeah, it's raining. He says, yeah. I said, it's raining on the floor. And he said, yeah. I said, shouldn't you close the window? And he was like, who do you work for? I work here, you don't. And I was like, okay, cool. And it's that funny thing of like, I'm looking around, I'm like, everything's pristine, everything's cool. They don't need me to come from an American museum and tell them, like, they're doing just fine with the way that they're preserving this stuff.
I mean, a lot of folks have their systems, and I guess you just kind of have to sit there and go, it's all right. That's your way to do it.
That's it.
Two stories that I wanted to get into. There were two pieces that you and I marveled over. Now, I marveled, and you put up with my questions about them. One has to do with your trip to St. Pauli.
Mhm.
And I wanted to get there first, and I wanted you to tell this story. And yes, we're going into added time, and I don't care. The story about St. Pauli and the banner. When folks come into the exhibit, they see a banner from St. Pauli, and one of the initial reactions that you got to that banner, that story I thought was amazing.
Yeah, man, it's still so crazy to me. We had a group from FIFA. That FIFA is based in Miami for the run of the tournament, and a group of folks from FIFA came up for a conference on combating racism, and they had that panel here at the center, and we had this great group of people. We had referees and soccer journalists, and George Weah was there. Kind of can't beat it at all, and everyone's following around George, right? It's like he's this Pied Piper, and everyone's behind him, and we're going around the exhibition. I'm giving him a tour, and the exhibition is not open yet, so we're like just talking about what it's going to look like, and as it's finished, and I keep looking back, and I see this guy who's staring up at one of the banners that was one of the first things that we hung up, and he's just staring. He's just like looking up, and we give the tour a little bit, and I look back, and he's still there. And we give the tour a little bit, and I look back, and I'm like, what's this dude's? What's he doing? And he's wearing, like, part of me wondered, like, did he just wander in? Like, is he, and he's wearing a FIFA sport coat. So I'm like, okay, he's official. So when it all ends and everyone sort of steps out, I stopped and I was like, hey, what's going on here? And he was just like, what is this? I said, it's a hand-painted banner from St. Pauli. And he was like, how did you get it? I said, I borrowed it from the St. Pauli Museum. I went through the museum and we picked out some things. And he was like, but how? I said, I don't know. I asked, and they said yes. And he was like, well, it's a recreation, right? I said, no, it's the original banner. It's from the museum, the original banner. He was like, but how? I was like, well, we already went over that. Man. Like, what do you mean? I told you how. And he was like, do you know who painted it? I said, St. Pauli supporters. And he says, I painted it. I painted it when I was 16. I got into an argument with my parents. I ran away from home in Switzerland, and I ran away from home, and I wound up in Hamburg, and I wound up with living in a punk house with all these kids that were into punk rock music. And he says, and they were all St. Pauli supporters. And he pulled out his supporters card, and he says, me and my friends painted this on the sidewalk before a match. And he was like, we did that in 1986 when I was 16. And he's like, I never come to the States. I'm only in Atlanta for one day. I didn't want to come because I just wanted to stay in Miami where I have all this work to do. And he was like, and I walk in, and the first thing I see is St. Pauli supporters. And he was like, well, why did you paint this? And I said, well, I my youth like rushing back to me. And the two guys from we took a photo, and and it's him pointing up at the banner. I sent it to the two guys who run the St. Pauli Museum just this morning. I sent it to them, and I was like, "Hey, do you guys know this guy?" And they were like, "Gert, that's Gert." It's like the same thing. They were like, "We haven't seen him in forever. We know that guy." It's like it's just this unbelievable small world.
And that's what soccer does, and that's part of the cool part of this whole thing. Once again, second floor up the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. It is the exhibit, The People's Game. Director of Curation Daniel Fuller, certified soccer fan, certified sicko soccer fan, hanging out with us here. We're in added time, and I don't care. Second story is a story that we have pursued, and it has to do with the Afghan Football Association and what Khalida Popal has done to try and have the Afghan Football Association recognized on the global stage. And you got some stuff from them, which I thought was absolutely amazing, but there's a story attached to that too.
Yeah, I mean, the important thing there was that I was telling you on Saturday night how I had been in contact with there's someone who they have that they get a lot of requests, and they have someone that helps out with sort of monitoring those requests. And that person in particular was incredibly generous right from the start. He felt like this was something that was right up their alley, and a good platform, a good place to tell their story. So he was putting me in touch with players. He was serving as a go-between with players. He was getting the stuff that we were requesting. And he also, it's kind of funny, it's like, man, I probably shouldn't tell this because he had the best idea for the exhibition, and it wound up not being able to happen. Just a timing thing. I'll tell you in person.
Okay.
Or come on down and take a tour of the come on down, come ask for me, and I'll tell any of your listeners. I'll tell them in person.
Yes.
This story. I'll tell them that this guy's great idea. But he was this go-between, and at one point he said to me, "Okay, everything's coming on a Friday. Like everything, you're gonna hear from everyone. You're gonna get WhatsApp messages. You're gonna get a couple emails, and you're gonna get a message from FedEx. Everything's leaving on Friday." And then Friday comes, and I don't hear from anyone, like no one at all. WhatsApp him, and he doesn't respond.
Uh-oh.
And then I WhatsApp him over the weekend, and it's getting a little closer to the exhibition opening, and some of the stuff, because when the team had to flee Afghanistan, you had players go to Norway. They went to Canada. They went around Europe. There was one player wound up in the U.S., New Zealand. So they fled to all over the place. So to get them sort of, and then to get them all sort of sending things on the same day, that's a big challenge in it, already, right? So I don't hear from anyone. So I text him again over the weekend, don't hear from him. And then on Monday, he was like, "Hey man, sorry about all that. Things were crazy after our court victory. And after all those years of trying to be recognized by FIFA again as a national team, they weren't allowed to be recognized as the national team because they didn't live in the same country. They weren't in Afghanistan. They couldn't play home matches in Afghanistan for very obvious reasons. At one point, FIFA tried to set up a national team refugee match, and they were like, "You're going to play it back in the Middle East, just not in Afghanistan." And they were like, "No, that's not going to work." FIFA wasn't understanding their situation, and the danger that they were facing, and they weren't. And then after many years of court battles, I get a WhatsApp on a Monday morning that's like, "Hey, sorry, everything's still on its way. FIFA finally reversed their ruling, and the team's going to be a national team again. We're going to play. Everyone's relocating to. Everyone's got 4 days. We're relocating from all over the world. Everyone has to say goodbye to their families, pack up all their belongings, and move to New Zealand because we start training in 4 days." And everyone did. That's how much it meant to them. So like on a moment's notice, just a phone call that FIFA reversed their decision. The importance of being a national team and being together was enough to make people just drop everything and move, for a lot of them, quite literally around the world, so that they could play soccer together again and represent their country.
Fantastic stuff. And that's barely scratches the surface. And I did that on purpose because I want folks to go see this exhibit because it is absolute gangbusters and you get lost in it. You literally do. You'll start down a wall and you literally are going station to station and club to club to find out about all these stories. The People's Game down at the National Center of Civil and Human Rights, Director of Curation, our friend Daniel Fuller. Thanks for coming on this morning and barely scratching the surface on this thing. You mentioned all the stuff that hasn't made it, and I know that that means that our director of videography, Nick Alifi, is going to want to come in and sit there and have you walk through the stuff that didn't make it.
Cool. Yeah, I'll like I said, ask for me. Anyone who wants to come in, ask for me at the front door. I will nerd out talking about these stories, talking soccer with anyone. This is the most fun I can imagine. I've never gotten to do a soccer exhibition at the art museums that I worked at previously, and this is a dream come true in a lot of ways.
And it gets to be there for the next year, right?
Yeah, and we'll do with things that didn't quite make the exhibition. We'll do some programming as well. We'll try and bring in some speakers and some filmmakers and bring in some players for conversations and panels and stuff like that.
Fantastic. Great to see you, my friend. Go get properly hydrated. Go get some brunch or something. Do you need a note to get back into class with Jill? You okay?
I'll sneak back in. I know all the side doors here.
Good deal. Don't be a stranger, my friend. We'll see you soon.
I really appreciate it. Good to see you. Thanks so much.
There he goes. Daniel Fuller, Director of Curation at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. Soccer geek, nerd, resident sicko. I mean, look, he's watching in New York State. He's watching Ukrainian Premier League football. That is right up our alley. I've got the Shakhtar scarves to prove it. And I mean, it's the Brazilian coefficient that was created with the agents and Mr. Lucescu, Mircea Lucescu, who was their two-time coach that got them to be on the European stage. There's a great article, by the way, in The Guardian. I think it's with Renat Akhmetov, the owner of Shakhtar, and how he was I think he said he was 5 seconds away from losing his life early in his tenure at Shakhtar. And then things could have been markedly different for that franchise and for business in Ukraine. So, yeah, I'm a bit of a Ukrainian Premier League sicko, so I admit it. So that's kind of where I am with this too. Go see this exhibit, The People's Game at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, and maybe ask for Daniel, and then you can sit there and nerd out together and just discuss things. It's about the collection that is shown is amazing. I can't wait to have Nick go down and have Daniel walk through what hasn't made it but is still in-house. Nick is going to nerd out on this assignment too. And so catch up with Daniel, go to the center, go see this exhibit. I cannot recommend it any more highly. The one question I do have that I will ask him next time has to do with preservation under lighting, because you have spotlights on a lot of these jerseys that are hanging there in the hall. So that's my question that I reserve for next time, is having to do with preservation in the setup. With the air conditioning, we understand it. Under and hermetically sealed behind glass, I get that. But there are some that are exposed to open air and it's lighted and it's spotlight. So I want to get into that too, if you have to have certain lighting and all that kind of stuff. So that's my question for next time. So Daniel has to come back. He has to come back. That's how this goes. National Center for Civil and Human Rights, downtown Atlanta, and our friend Daniel Fuller, the Director of Curation there. Very, very cool. Go see this exhibit, and it'll definitely be worth your time as a part of an excursion to downtown Atlanta. All right, what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. Brought to us by our friends at Fanati's, fntz.co/soccer down here. That link helps them out, helps us out, and helps you out. You get more streaming services and more access to more matches in South America and around the planet that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And you can get access to all the BNs, which means you get Libertadores, Sudamericana, you get links to CATV, you get links to Tigo Sports. You get the 3 leagues in Europe that BN has access to. That is Turkey, that is France, and that is Poland. Those 3 leagues in Europe, they have those broadcast rights, and you get to see those matches, which means you get Coupe de France as well. Then, as a part of that, you also get everything going on in AFCON. You get the CAF, you get Champions League, you get the U7, you get the U17 tournaments, all those things. That's all at Fanatis, Middle East, North Africa, and all the other leagues that they're attached to. You get Liga 1 Max Pro out of Peru, CDO 2 out of Chile, TVV if you want to add it out of Venezuela, but as I say, there is a cable system here in the southeastern United States that has it as a part of their Spanish-speaking package, so you may not necessarily need to add TVV. But you get TSE out of Argentina, and their coverage of the World Cup has been absolutely amazing, as they have followed the Albiceleste around. So you get all of that stuff, and you get Libertadores, Sudamericana, all the things. That's at Fanatics, fntz.co/soccer down here. Surprisingly, not. It's all World Cup stuff today. But the breakdown is Big FOX has your first 3 matches, 1, 4, and 7. Then FS1 has Colombia, DR Congo at 10 from Guadalajara or Guadalajara. That means that the HOF is up and running. I'll try and catch up with the HOF later this week before he exits Guadalajara. Telemundo has all 4 in a row. Fox ONE has all 4 in a row. So that's your rundown there. Once again, what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it by our friends at Fanatis at fntz.co/soccer down here. All right, let's get into the Twitters and see if there are any headlines that I have missed as a part of everything. There were a couple of folks that we saw some bolos on, and I wanted to react to those before we get out of here today. We do have some interviews with some folks that we are taping that will be a part of programming this week and beyond. So today, personal terms between Morgan Rogers and Arsenal will not be an issue, according to Ben and his newsletter at Gimme Sport. Chelsea keen on Maxence Lacroix, revealed on TalkSport last week. Palace would like to keep him. He was a sneaky good pickup in fantasy, by the way, because he was an unknown commodity, so he was at a low price point. But Maxence Lacroix did really well under Oliver Glasner. Chelsea keen on him. They want to sign a starting center back who brings height and physicality. Como Jacobo Ramon also remains appreciated, as Ben says. Leeds have held positive talks with Harry Wilson as they want to be first in line. Wilson's a free agent after leaving Fulham. And Mbappe is the first France player to score multiple goals in 3 consecutive World Cup matches, a run dating back to the 2022 World Cup final. So keep an eye out on that. Now, there was one note from our friend Tommy Scoops to keep an eye on here in the footprint, and it has to do with a scorer up the road. And it was news late yesterday. There are reports that Greek side PAOK has opened talks with Charlotte FC to sign Liel Abada. Other European teams are interested. 77 appearances after joining from Celtic in 2024. So keep an eye on Liel Abada. We will try and get the lay of the land from our friend Will Pelagic, and see if there is any truth or any runway to that. David Ornstein says Valerian Balogun's expected to leave Monaco this summer. Contract is to 28. No talks over a new deal. He favors a move. Interest from the Premier League in Europe building amidst his form. It is anticipated that Monaco is going to seek around 50 million euro to sell the U.S. M&T star. So now with David Ornstein, let me see if there's anything else that's here. Fulham are in a process of closing the deal to appoint Alvaro Arbeloa as their new head coach. Fulham insists 2 candidates remain in contention. A 3-year deal for the Spaniard and his staff pending final decisions. Guillermo Rai, Mario Cortegana, and Ornstein reporting on that one. We mentioned Valerian Balogun, and we also mentioned Lucas Bergvall. We have to keep an eye on him and Sandro Tonali. Gary O'Neill to Ipswich is being finalized. Positive talks with him and with Bluco, because he's coming from Strasbourg. Possible announcement would be early this week, if that is going to, in fact, be finalized. So we'll keep an eye on Gary O'Neill. Let me see. Let me check the date on that. So hang on. Gary O'Neill. So let's see if O'Neill and well, look at that. So you know what? Tell you what, we're gonna go in a circle here. We're going to go in an absolute circle. Exactly. Deep into added time, referee doesn't want to blow the whistle. He's just getting locked into all the content. So as we did before Kevin Huet came on this morning, we're gonna go life as a circle here. This is what we're gonna do. If I can find it in my drops here, because I need to play it a little, or I need to put it a little higher in my rundown. As of 3 minutes ago, Gary O'Neill is now officially official at Ipswich. New manager on a 3-year deal, and he is wearing the blazer and tie getup. He does not have a pen hovering over a contract and smiling at the camera, but he does have the pose of someone who looks like he just signed a deal. So he has the logo off to his side in the official photograph. He is resting on his left arm, and he's wearing a blazer and a tie. So if that means anything, I guess Ipswich Town now confirming Gary O'Neill is their new manager, and it was released basically 5 minutes ago by the club. 20th manager in their 90-year history. Portman Road from Strasbourg, 3-year deal to the summer of 2029. So Gary O'Neill officially official to Ipswich. So that is in the barn as well. So with that story, I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I've missed before we get out of here. Like I said, we're taping a couple of interviews that will be with us here during the week. We are catching up with Ali Howarth, and we're going to get the lowdown on Cabo Verde. We got to see it. Ali's seeing more of it. We're going to catch up with him later today. And Amy Andrews. You might remember Amy from her time with the Tormenta's W team that won the USLW championship. She is hanging out over here on holiday, and she wanted to make sure the interview was done before the Three Lions match later this afternoon. So we're catching up with Amy in about an hour. We're going to run that along the network, and Ali Howarth, we're going to tape that one later this afternoon as well and get you ready for Cabo Verdean coverage tomorrow. Tomorrow, once again, another visit to another visit to Kennesaw State. We get to find out what's going on there with Heather Morgan and all of the marketing and licensing and all the things that we've seen about what FIFA says you can do and what you can't, and how smart Levi's was in doing what they did. So Heather Morgan's batting leadoff tomorrow. So who with Heather Morgan. And Dylan Butler should be joining at 10 o'clock, and then Ali Howarth and Amy Andrews as well on your Wednesday. And then on Thursday, it's the Power Hour with Nino and Nico, and we just continue to roll from there. So we got some feelers out for a bunch of folks, and we'll see how many of them can crash. But that is the show today. I'm sitting here and looking. Did I miss anything? Oh, Manchester United. It looks like they got the okie doke on the majority of their real estate that they were looking for the new Old Trafford. And they've secured the majority of the land required to build the 100,000 seater. And so there is going to be news about Old Trafford. So New Trafford will be Old Trafford at some point. And so they announced the milestone in securing the land for the 100,000 seat stadium as it was pieced together by Manchester United, as I sit here and pop through not one, but two or three pop-up windows. So the new stadium, once again, not the city, but United claim it's going to be a catalyst for regeneration of the surrounding district. 25 acres, 350 meters northwest of the current stadium from Endurant, a leading provider of industrial space and a Blackstone portfolio company. United will engage directly with businesses impacted by the plans to support them through this transition period. They also worked in collaboration with Trafford Council and Old Trafford Regeneration Mayoral Development Corporation, the OTRMDC, to ensure the location of the new stadium works cohesively with the wider Old Trafford regeneration strategy, ensuring, quote, and this is from Colette Roche, the CEO of Man U's new stadium development, ensuring optimum connectivity and the best possible experience for fans. They are planning a 370-acre regeneration project, 15,000 new homes, affordable housing, 48,000 new jobs locally, 90,000 nationally, £7 billion a year to the UK economy. And a quote from Colette Roche was attached to the particular release. And they have the picture of Old Trafford, and if I'm remembering correctly, it's going to go to the adjacent storage, the adjacent train storage facility that is basically 350 meters off to the side. So it's going to be, I think, in that direction, I think is what they were looking at. It wasn't going to be at the row homes or any of the parking or anything like that. So let me hang on just a second. So this is now bugging me, so I'm going to have to look at it. Manchester United new stadium. So we're going to use the Google searches and see if it'll cooperate with us here. So they expect the stadium to be open within 6 years. And as we anticipated, it is going to be in that lot. So it is going to be in that lot where it is currently drop-offs for railway cars and for 18-wheeler trailers for transport. It's going to be in that part away from the railway and along the canal. So it's going to be over off to the side about 350 meters. So Old Trafford, where it is now, you've got some parking spaces and some things to navigate, and then the rail yard. So it's going to be in the rail yard, and they've secured most of that land. So that's where it's going to be for Old Trafford when it comes to New Trafford. So really quickly, let me get you into what is going on with Atlanta soccer tonight and Jason and where he is going to be on your rundown. So it's going to be a full deal. 10 o'clock, 92.9 the game and the Odyssey app and the 92.9 YouTube channel. And I'm going to be on tonight, recapping your full Tuesday, including England, Ghana, Ronaldo with Portugal and Uzbekistan, late night, Colombia, DR Congo. So 10 o'clock, 10 to midnight, 92.9 the game, Odyssey app, 92.9 the game YouTube channel, 10 to 11, three-dimensional experience. So Jason will start you off on all three of those. And after the Decatur FC match is over, I will be wandering over from that. Drew Dickinson and I will have the call on that at the WPSL.tv. And when that match is over, I wander back over here to the Imitation Palatial Studios of SDH AM, and Jason and I will break down everything on your Tuesday in the World Cup, and then stoppage time in the 11 o'clock hour on the 92.9 The Game YouTube channel. So that is where you go. Other quick news notes that I might have mentioned or that I might have missed. I've mentioned Christian Pulisic back in training, mentioned Valerian Balogun, and Atlanta has officially welcomed more fans to their fan fest than any other host city through the first 10 days of the tournament. Just under 275,000 visitors. FIFA added a new date Thursday to keep up with demand. That was announced at the press conference yesterday by Josh Blank and Rich McKay as they were introducing Mauricio Calabro. So you want to go watch the U.S. match late night? Go to the Fan Fest. But once again, get your tickets. You can't just wander up. You get tickets, and then you get your ticket, then you get in the door. That's because of demand. So it's been a busy, busy time about everything there. Central Coast Mariners in the A-League have been taken over by Total Soccer Growth Holdings, majority shareholder of QPR, stake in LAFC. They had been controlled by the league since January after Mike Charlesworth, the previous owner, forfeited his club participation agreement. It does not include the women's team. RB Leipzig have named Martin Demichelis their new coach on a contract through 28. And Lazio have officially appointed Gennaro Gattuso as their new head coach. We mentioned Arbeloa as well. So busy day. Enjoy your games. Starting at 1 o'clock. We'll walk you through it. Come back tonight. Atlanta Soccer tonight, 92.9 The Game, the Odyssey app. Thanks to Kevin Huet and thanks to Daniel Fuller. Those were fun. Tomorrow it's a Wall Pass Wednesday. Who the heck knows what's going to be on the table, but we know that we'll be back here at 9:05 in the morning. So we start your day, AST ends your day, and then we start your day, and then AST ends your day. That's how this goes. We get games in between. So thanks to everybody. Thanks to all of y'all for hanging out with us. Good to see Gustavo out there. Good to see Kevin, who is hanging out with us on the Twitch pitch. And let me see if there's anybody else that I might have missed. So David was in this morning. Gustavo was in this morning and talking to us on the Twitch pitch as we go along with Kevin Hewitt. So there you go. That's another go-round of SDH AM. Thanks for dropping by. Audio is going to be posted later. We'll probably have some clips on social media to keep an eye on as we go. Since it is the end of the show, that means I get to do one thing. I get to do this. See you tonight at Decatur FC. After that, Atlanta Soccer tonight. Enjoy the games, everybody. We'll see you in a bit.